Welcome to homestead gardening in the Texas Gulf Coast. Keeping up with a huge compost pile is a lot of work, and I really like to keep things simple, which is why I don't choose to keep up with a hot compost pile. But cold composting, which is a method you've seen me use in other videos, doesn't actually decompose everything from my kitchen. Cold composting is really great for things like leaves to make leaf mold compost, but it can be a little bit more difficult when you're decomposing a lot of more difficult things, especially kitchen scraps that are going to take a much longer time or really need a hot compost pile to fully decompose. That's why in this episode, I'm going to show you how I use a process called Bokashi Composting to not only decompose those more difficult kitchen scraps, but also decompose some things that are definitely compostable, but are a little unusual that you may not find in a normal compost pile.
To start Bokashi composting, you need to start with the right tools. If you're not a fan of DIY projects, you can purchase a Bokashi bin and Bokashi bran flakes, and a link to those resources is in the description. Or you can make your own bin and Bokashi bran flakes. To make Bokashi bran flakes, take a look at my video showing you the steps and the recipe for easy and affordable Bokashi bran inoculation. You can find the link in the episode description. To make your bin, you will need 2 5-gallon buckets, a brick, a lid, and a drill. Simply drill 4 holes into the bottom of one bucket and set this bucket aside. This will be bucket number 2. Bucket number 1 will be on the bottom of your setup. Your brick will go inside the bucket to separate buckets 1 and 2. Bucket 2 will go inside bucket 1 with the brick separating, and your lid will go on top. You can also use a piece of cheesecloth to separate your scraps from the holes in bucket number 2. Any moisture that drains from your scraps will be filtered through the cheesecloth into the bottom of bucket number 2. Bokashi composting is a process that uses alternating layers of organic scrap waste and inoculated Bokashi bran that includes microorganisms which ferment that organic scrap waste. For every 2 inches of organic scraps, sprinkle the inoculated bran and tamp it down to remove excess air. After 3 weeks in the Bokashi bucket, your contents can be added to your outdoor compost bin. Spread a brown compostable layer like leaves on top and wait 3 weeks to check on the progress. The end result should be rich compost that you can add directly to your beds. So what can you add to your Bokashi bin? Any organic scraps that are considered a green composting item, like coffee grounds, eggshells, dog hair, grains, meat, bones, and vegetable scraps, to name a few. Items like dog hair, grains, meat, and bones can go rancid, spoil, or just not decompose well in outdoor composting systems, so they're great additions to Bokashi. What you shouldn't add are scraps that have already begun to mold or spoil, because this bad bacteria and bad mold can take over a Bokashi system.
Okay, so I usually wouldn't pull back compost to check on it with my hands, but let me tell you what we have happening here. So the other day, a few weeks ago, I dumped my Bokashi compost into this, and it was a little bit dry. It was drier than I wanted it to be. I covered it with leaves, so I have this whole compost is really a leaf mold compost, and I'm adding Bokashi into it. Here's what's happening. First of all, we have roly-polies, ants, and probably little bits of fly, larva, maggots, something like that. That's kind of gross in here, but everything's getting broken down. It smells amazing, and I know that's kind of gross to say. You can see the dog hair in here too, so like visually it's not pretty, but look at this. Do you see these little rootlets? These are not roots. This is mycorrhiza fungi. This is a fungi network that I shouldn't have uncovered, but here we are videotaping things. So this is also helping with my piles, microorganism content, making sure that everything's breaking down really well, and this everything together that you're seeing is working together. We also had a really nice rain the other day, so we had a lot of good hydrating happening to the pile, which hasn't been as possible recently because we've been in a drought, and that does make things take longer to break down. So this rain's really going to help out. Obviously the smell is indicating to me, that fresh composting smell is telling me that this is really close, and you can see that the Bokashi, individual parts of the Bokashi are no longer present anymore.